In today's political landscape, figures like Charlie Kirk have gained significant influence by promoting divisive rhetoric, fear-based narratives, and a rigid interpretation of faith. While he presents himself as a defender of traditional values, his approach undermines social cohesion, distorts Christian teachings, and promotes exclusion rather than understanding. Kirk's platform, rooted in misinformation and ideological rigidity, is not only damaging to society's progress, but also contradicts the core message of Christianity: love, empathy, and acceptance. One of the most harmful aspects of Kirk's influence is his promotion of division through misleading or outright false information. His rhetoric frequently paints marginalized groups, such as the LGBTQ+ community, immigrants, and progressive activists, as threats to American values, creating an us versus them mentality. Instead of fostering healthy debate and understanding, he pushes narratives that fuel fear, resentment, and hostility. For example, Kirk consistently argues that LGBTQ+ rights and gender inclusivity are part of a leftist plot to erase traditional values, ignoring the scientific and psychological realities that affirm gender identity as separate from biological sex. By dismissing credible research and reducing complex social issues to culture war soundbites, he prevents his followers from engaging in critical thinking or meaningful discussions. Misinformation of this kind does not just reinforce prejudice, it actively hinders society's ability to progress toward equality and justice. Kirk often claims to defend Christianity, but his actions and rhetoric frequently contradict Jesus' actual teachings. Christianity at its core emphasizes love, humility, and inclusion, yet Kirk's approach is built on judgment, exclusion, and self-righteousness. Jesus spent time with outcasts, sinners, and the marginalized, tax collectors, prostitutes, the poor, people who were shunned by religious leaders of his time. His message was one of compassion and understanding. Love your neighbor as yourself, Mark 12:31. However, Kirk's interpretation of Christianity is selective and weaponized, used not to spread love, but to justify exclusion. Instead of embracing LGBTQ+ individuals, immigrants, and those struggling with societal acceptance, he frames them as enemies of the faith. This twisting of scripture to push a political agenda damages Christianity's reputation, making it seem more like a tool for control and division rather than a message of hope. Additionally, his victim complex, where he portrays conservatives and Christians as under attack, ignores the historical and present-day persecution faced by LGBTQ+ people, racial minorities, and non-Christians. Instead of advocating for true religious freedom, he pushes for a Christian nationalism that places his version of faith above all others, disregarding the principles of separation of church and state. Kirk's influence extends beyond just religious discussions. He actively uses politics as a weapon to roll back civil rights and social progress. Through his organization Turning Point USA, he recruits young people to adopt reactionary and extremist views, making them believe that progressive policies are a threat to their freedom rather than a step toward justice. Some of the policies he opposes, such as LGBTQ+ protections, racial equality initiatives, and economic reforms, are not radical ideas but necessary measures to correct historical injustices. Yet in Kirk's worldview, anything that deviates from his rigid interpretation of tradition is seen as an attack on America itself. This level of resistance to change is not only harmful, it actively stifles social progress and keeps marginalized communities trapped in cycles of discrimination. Moreover, his platform thrives on outrage politics, keeping his followers in a constant state of fear and anger, rather than encouraging meaningful engagement with policy or governance. By convincing people that they are under attack, he ensures blind loyalty, a tactic used throughout history by demagogues who prioritize power over truth. Another major issue with figures like Kirk is their ability to build cult-like followings where dissent is not tolerated and critical thinking is discouraged. His supporters often repeat his talking points without question, believing they are defending traditional values when in reality, they are being manipulated into supporting an exclusionary and regressive ideology. This type of blind loyalty is dangerous because it creates an environment where facts no longer matter, only ideology. Compassion is seen as weakness instead of a virtue. People become more divided, unable to have constructive conversations with those who think differently. When individuals are conditioned to see the world through a lens of perpetual conflict, they stop seeking understanding and instead cling to dogma, even when it contradicts reality. This erodes democracy, social trust, and personal growth, making it harder to create a more just and equitable society. To truly understand the harm caused by figures like Charlie Kirk, take a moment to imagine yourself in the position of those he vilifies. Not by choice, but by nature. Imagine this. You wake up one day, and everything about you, your feelings, your identity, your very existence, is seen as wrong, not because of anything you've done, but because of who you are. From childhood you realize you are different, but you don't understand why people around you react with discomfort, fear, or even disgust when they notice it. Your family, school, and church tell you that there are only two ways to exist, and you don't fit neatly into either one. You don't feel safe expressing yourself fully because every time you try, you are met with ridicule, exclusion, or even threats. Imagine walking into a classroom where everyone else gets to be themselves, but you are told that your identity is a phase, unnatural, or sinful. Imagine applying for a job and wondering if they'll reject you not because of your skills, but because of your existence. Imagine being kicked out of your home at 16 just because you were honest about who you are. Imagine your government debating whether you should have the same basic human rights as others. Imagine people like Charlie Kirk telling the world that you don't deserve to be seen, respected, or acknowledged. Not because you have done anything wrong, but because you don't fit the version of reality they want to impose on everyone else. Now imagine all of this happening and you have no control over it. This isn't a hypothetical for millions of LGBTQ+ people who experience bullying, discrimination, family rejection, and systemic oppression simply for existing. It's not a choice. Just like you didn't choose your height, eye color, or natural personality, they didn't choose their gender identity or sexual orientation. Yet people like Charlie Kirk tell them that their struggles don't matter, or worse, that they deserve them. Conclusion: a force for division, not faith. Charlie Kirk's influence on society and faith is overwhelmingly negative because he prioritizes power, fear, and exclusion over truth, love, and understanding. His distortion of Christianity makes religion appear as a tool for judgment rather than a source of hope. His spread of misinformation and division weakens society, creating unnecessary conflict and preventing genuine progress. True faith is about love, acceptance, and helping others, not controlling them. True patriotism is about building a better society for all, not just a privileged few. Figures like Kirk, who thrive on division and fear, do not defend faith or society. They corrupt them for personal and political gain. If we want a better world, we must reject his brand of exclusion and misinformation, and instead embrace values of empathy, critical thinking, and true compassion, the values that Jesus actually taught.